So, you're on Ruslan Belov's channel. Well, it's June 2nd, the day of the second round of negotiations between us and Ukraine. The delegation has arrived in Istanbul. But why? Especially considering what happened yesterday, the sabotage of railway lines, the strikes on a strategic aviation airfield. I just don't know. As I said yesterday, even Primakov back in Yeltsin's time turned his plane around, and that was when Yugoslavia was being bombed, not Russia. Now Russia is being bombed, and our officials act as if nothing happened. Lavrov is talking to Rubio, the delegation is in Istanbul, and today we're going to meet with the Ukrainian side. Anyway, I won't say anything more on this topic. I believe we'll see Russia's response in the coming days. So the fighting on the front lines continues, and we continue to monitor the battlefield situation. Let's open the map. Friends, amidst the tragic events of yesterday and today's upcoming circus in Istanbul, because it can't be called anything other than a circus, considering the demands the Ukrainian side is making, we must not lose sight of the situation on the front. And there, nothing good is happening for Ukraine. The media aspect of this war plays an important role, but the reality on the ground remains difficult for the Ukrainian armed forces, and sabotage won't help them. Collapses are happening in various areas of the front. We're seeing advances that, not long ago, seemed almost like science fiction. Today, just like in previous days, we'll start with the Sumy region and the border area. That's where we've seen the most activity lately. Yesterday, the Ukrainian forces once again attempted to launch an offensive in the Kursk area of the front, simultaneous with their strikes on the airfields. The geolocation is the same. It's the area between the villages of Tyotkino and Novi Put. The result is also the same. While they may count the airfield strikes as a success, on the ground it's failure after failure. For a whole month, since the beginning of May, they've been trying to break through into the Kursk region. Zelensky even tried to boast recently, saying, "We left the Sudzha area." Well, actually, you didn't leave. You were pushed out, but he claimed, "We left the Sudzha area and entered Tyotkino." Oh really? Entered where exactly? Onto one street, Chapaiva Street, and even there, only your dead remained. I posted a video in my Telegram channel showing trenches near Tyotkino completely littered with the bodies of Ukrainian troops. Yesterday, once again, starting at 5 a.m., they launched another attempt to cross the border and enter the Kursk region. A significant force was used, up to a company of soldiers. But yesterday there was a flood of other news, so this attack didn't really break through the media noise. Their plan is clear, to cut off the area around Popovo-Leżachi and Tyotkino, essentially slicing off this protrusion of the Kursk region, which spans about 60 square kilometers. If they had succeeded, it would have been a triple combo, blowing up a railway bridge in Bryansk region, striking airfields, and then breaking into the Kursk region. But as I said from the start, on the ground, it's nothing but failures for the Ukrainian forces. The result of yesterday's attack: they lost 2 tanks, 5 BMPs, 2 mine-clearing vehicles, 1 armored vehicle, and a large number of ATVs and motorcycles. I won't even mention the personnel losses. Yes, during the initial push, they managed to cross the demarcation line and enter the Kursk region, but they couldn't hold it. Our soldiers holding the line here once again showed heroism and managed to repel the enemy, although there were losses on our side too. Now let's move to the Sumy region, where the Ukrainian forces are facing major problems. We're seeing ongoing battles in Yunukovka, and not just on the outskirts, but deep within what used to be a Ukrainian logistics hub. In fact, Russian troops are now approaching the center, and fighting is taking place near the Church of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The advance within Yunukovka has already reached 1.5 kilometers. The Ukrainian forces are collapsing here faster than expected. The fighting started on the evening of May 31st. Now it's the morning of June 2nd, and we're already almost at the center of the village. The entire northern part of Yunukovka is already under full control of the Russian armed forces. At this pace, it's likely that the entire village will be under Russian control by the end of this week or early next week. And from there, very interesting prospects open up for further advances, possibly even toward the regional center, the city of Sumy. As you can see, the distance from here isn't that great, just 19 or 20 kilometers. And summer has only just begun. Again, it's just June 2nd. By the end of summer, you'll be surprised at where the front line will be drawn. Let's move on. A significant collapse occurred yesterday for the Ukrainian armed forces in the Turets area, on the flank. Just take a look. This is the second such collapse in the last 3 days. The first was here, when Russian forces advanced more than 3 kilometers and reached the outskirts of Delivka. Now there's another collapse. The advance has reached 5 kilometers. Again, just a couple of months ago, such numbers would have seemed completely unrealistic. But now we're seeing daily advances of 4, 5, even 6 to 7 kilometers. In this area, Russian troops entered Delivka with a single thrust and drove out the Ukrainian forces. The village is now fully under our control. There is objective control footage confirming this, including a flag raised in the center of the village. This is a huge blow for the Ukrainian side, because just 1.5 kilometers further lies the village of Belaya Gora, right on the approaches to Kostyantynivka. In addition, in just one day, the Ukrainian forces lost more than 11 square kilometers of territory in this area. Just 3 days ago, the front line ran here. But now, as you can see, it's much closer. From the new positions, the distance to Kostyantynivka is just 9 kilometers. That's still not insignificant, but 3 days ago it was 14.5 kilometers. Now it's 9, and 9 is definitely more interesting than 14.5, right? In general, the Kostyantynivka section of the front continues to crack under pressure. From Chasiv Yar, Russian fighters are also reporting very interesting developments. In addition to the advance in the Shevchenko neighborhood, Russian forces are gradually taking control of the approaches to the town, both with firepower and drones. According to reports, Russian FPV drones are now flying into the city of Kostyantynivka on a daily basis, and the situation for the AFU continues to deteriorate. It looks like the situation will reach a critical point soon. I think it will take about 2 more weeks, after which this area will be fully cleared and fighting from all directions will shift directly to Kostyantynivka. The Ukrainian side, clearly not from a position of strength, has redeployed forces from the Sumy direction to this area. Apparently, battles for the city could have already started in early June, and they are trying to delay that moment for as long as possible. However, I believe the battle for the city will unfold in July and August. The noose around the city is tightening. This also applies to the pocket between Toretsk and Mirnohrad. There was also progress here yesterday. Russian forces managed to push the AFU out of the northern part of the village of Zoria. Again, this is not speculation. There was objective control footage showing the Russian flag in the northern part of the village. Even American cartographers have marked the northern part of the village in red. The entire village is now under our full control, and it played an important role in holding back further Russian advance. Now, I think we'll start seeing solid numbers on the clearance of the remaining territory in this pocket and a push toward the final defensive line. Expect good news from this direction soon. On the Pokrovsk direction, nothing is changing. It was difficult before, and it remains difficult now, unlike other parts of the front where there's movement. And let me show you a visual comparison so you can see it with your own eyes. Let's look at how the front line has shifted over the past 5 months, from February 1st to June 2nd. Here is the line of contact on February 1st, and here are the current positions. You see, in the south, from Dakhny to current positions, it's a 25-kilometer advance. On the eastern flank of Mirnohrad, and in this pocket, significant gains. On the Lyman front, a 17-kilometer advance. The Dvorichna bridgehead in Kharkiv Oblast is more modest, but even there, the front is slowly moving. And in Sumy Oblast, the entire Kursk region was cleared. That's 400 square kilometers. And now there's already a buffer zone in Sumy. In fact, if we count from Yunakivka to Poraby, that's a 30-kilometer advance during this time. Now let's go back to the Pokrovsk section. Look, the front is frozen. Some slight losses here, some small gains there. In 5 months, the advance was just about 1 kilometer in 2 separate places. In the grand scheme of 5 months, that's negligible. The front is stuck. And while other sections of the AFU defenses are collapsing, this sector feels like it's cemented in place. We haven't been able to move it. Maybe things will change once the area east of Novoekonomichne is taken and we move toward Rodinska. But that's not something for now or the coming weeks. It's a prospect for August to September approximately. So for now, I believe the Pokrovsk direction will remain a dead sector of the front. If we sum up the past 24 hours, the total area of territory that came under our control amounted to 14.5 square kilometers. That's all I have on the situation at the front for today. Now a few words on the political dimension. The SBU had been preparing Operation Spiderweb to strike a Russian airfield for more than a year and a half. First, FPV drones were smuggled into Russia, followed by mobile wooden cabins. The drones were hidden under the roofs of these cabins and transported by trucks. At the designated time, the roofs were remotely opened and the drones were launched. Reports say that the warehouse where the drone containers were assembled has been found. It's located in Chelyabinsk and was rented out for 350,000 rubles. Apparently, the trucks were loaded there and then sent out to their destinations. According to Oleg Tsaryov, law enforcement is now checking whether this is a false lead. After the night sabotage on the railway, 55 people were hospitalized in Bryansk Oblast, including 4 children. According to sources, the Russian side is not planning to pull out of the negotiation track in Istanbul, despite the strikes on strategic aviation facilities. The Kremlin has decided to stay involved in the talks to avoid giving the Europeans and the Zelensky regime grounds to accuse Moscow of sabotaging the negotiations, according to the Telegram channel Secret Chancellery. The approach will now be to formalize the negotiation process, move it into a stricter, protocol-based format with no illusions. Essentially, this is minimalist diplomacy with an eye on political and reputational insurance. Meanwhile, the military component is being stepped up. A list of targets for massive strikes is being prepared, targeting Ukraine's rear infrastructure, military, energy and logistics sites, transportation hubs, communications centers, and oil refineries, with action expected in the coming days. The response will be asymmetrical. On one hand, it will demonstrate restraint on the international stage. On the other, it will intensify military pressure on Ukraine's infrastructure. The Russian leadership intends to show that it has substantial arguments in response to the provocative actions of Kiev and its backers aimed at escalating the conflict. The Ukrainian strikes on Russian airfields, what are the consequences for Russia's long-range aviation? According to military observer Yuri Podolyaka, it may still be early to assess the full impact, but there are already some things worth clarifying. First, the number of damaged aircraft. Kiev claims about 40 units were hit, allegedly 34% of Russia's strategic aviation fleet. However, after reviewing all available videos, I count a maximum of 5 Tu-95 strategic bombers hit, 2 of which are definitely beyond repair, plus 1 Il-20, which will likely also be written off. On 3 Tu-95s, the fires appear localized, and if they were extinguished in time, there may still be a chance to repair them. As of yesterday morning, the Russian armed forces had 58 Tu-95s in service. Even if all 5 were destroyed, that's under 10% of the fleet. Moreover, of the planned strikes on 5 airfields, only 2 were successful. At the other 3, no strategic aircraft were damaged. Thus, based on confirmed data, less than 4% of the strategic fleet has been knocked out, or 6.5% if we only count the heavy bombers, Tu-95 and Tu-160. Clearly, the only reliable countermeasure is hardened concrete shelters for aircraft, along with the development of new low-cost systems for destroying small targets. At the same time, the UK's Minister of Defence has declared readiness to confront Russia. Britain is expanding its military-industrial complex to be able to directly face off with Russia, said Defence Secretary John Healey. The upcoming Strategic Defence Review will outline how the British military should respond and how national security will be ensured. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and staying updated with us. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates. See you next time and take care.